Breaking news at this hour, police pursuit of an armed robbery suspect.
Desmond Shaw live in SkyCal to tell us more now. Desmond?
Here we go, Pat and Susie. We are northbound on Vermont, making our way out of Koreatown. We've been all over the place on this pursuit as far as the suspects anyway. It began in the Alhambra area. These are alleged armed robbery suspects. At one point, there were believed to have been 4 of them in the vehicle. 2 of them got out, bailed in the South LA area. They were taken into custody by LAPD. So even though it started in Alhambra, as we see the suspect cutting over to the right-hand lane and trying to evade the authorities here, it started with Alhambra PD. They gave it up because of speed. It was in LA County Sheriff's Deputy's jurisdiction, but then it came over to the city of Los Angeles. We first heard about it in the downtown area. So LAPD picked it up, and they're being pretty aggressive on this one. They had backed off for a second, but I just heard the watch commander give them permission to re-engage. It's to believe that there's still 2 in the vehicle here. You see them coming through that weird intersection there at Beverly, Temple, right there. So now it kind of cutting back towards downtown LA. Not super high speeds, but definitely some dangerous driving. LAPD with their helicopter overhead, units on the ground, trying to get what's believed to be 2 more suspects and may be armed and dangerous, wanted for multiple robberies now as we are making our way out of Koreatown and into the Westlake District. Pat and Susie.
Yeah, try to get more information about where these robberies occur, possibly in Alhambra, since that's where this started. And this obviously makes it a bit more difficult in downtown Los Angeles, of course, with the tall buildings and the parking garages that they can go into, and you wonder just what these 2 suspects gave up.
Yeah, no kidding. And you know, it makes you wonder if there was original want was speed, and then now we're talking about pursuit of armed robbery suspects. You wonder what happened during that time. Right, exactly. As Desmond mentioned, there were actually 4 people inside this vehicle at one point. 2 got out in South LA. The LAPD arresting those 2 people already, but we do believe that 2 people are still inside this car. And if we're talking about armed robbery suspects, I believe that they could be armed as well. It's unclear if they threw whatever weapon that they had out the window or if they're still in possession of it. But this is definitely something that law enforcement will be considering when trying to stop them.
I'm sure, and that's probably first of mind. They're going to consider that they are armed. At this point, you know, you wonder if those 2 people who got out of the car and were arrested gave up that kind of information or not. But I would suspect that they still believe that these 2 suspects who are still in this vehicle are armed, more than likely. Well, Desmond, I see now they're taking a turn. Is this a more, I wanted to say a more residential area, but yeah, I do see some what may look like apartments in the Westlake area.
Yeah, this is definitely, one of the more dense developments here, kind of between Beverly and the 101 freeway. And we'll see if they know where they're going, because after making this turn kind of towards the 101, not all of these streets go through. And we'll see, again, what their plan is. So we mentioned that they might be armed and dangerous, and we did hear LAPD on the radio say, I heard something about them, that they wanted a unit to respond to some cross streets. I didn't hear the intersection, but they said for an article that may have been thrown out the window. It's, you know, sometimes that's a gun, sometimes it's other things. But regardless, they have said several times that these suspects are known to be armed. So that's definitely going to be how they treat the situation. That definitely complicates things for the authorities. We're not likely to see a pit maneuver if they think that they're armed and dangerous. Not likely to see spike strips either. It's definitely more of a defensive posture whenever they have, really strong reason to believe that someone is armed. And again, we are talking about multiple armed robberies. So, at least one in the Alhambra area. Unclear where the other ones happen. It's still trying to learn those details from the authorities, but kind of dealing with multiple agencies on all this. Again, this is, LAPD, even though it began in Alhambra in the San Gabriel Valley. So we're just kind of randomly, meandering around Los Angeles right now as we're over on Rampart and pretty close to the 101. Just kind of circling around. A lot of times when they do this, it's just kind of looking for a place to get out and run, but LAPD's right behind them. So, if they're going to try to do that, they're probably not going to get very far. We have multiple units that are engaged in this one, and, 2 of the 4 already taken into custody. So, we'll see what the plan is here, but kind of, on the perimeter of downtown LA. We were in downtown. We were down by USC for a little while, so we'll try to get this building out of the way. But you can see not even really going very fast either, just, 20 or so miles an hour. Maybe they're just kind of trying to formulate a plan or what their next move is going to be, maybe making some phone calls, who knows, but sometimes, I mean, of course, it could change in a moment's notice. We have suspects that seem kind of subdued, and then all of a sudden they take off and drive like maniacs. So we'll see how this progresses as we come to a red light here at Beverly and Alvarado and Westlake.
Well, I thought they were going to obey that red light there, but I guess not.
Right.
But at the same time, they're still not driving as fast as you mentioned, Des, and we of course see that night sun overhead. Just wondering, like we noticed how many vehicles are behind this car. So the car knows.
A lot of speed bumps or speed humps in this neighborhood as you've been seeing this person go over them, at relatively low speeds actually, and you can see them making that right turn there, not driving so desperately as we often see by armed robbery suspects when they're trying to get away and evade law enforcement. We often see them going very fast, usually on the freeway, to try to get away as soon as possible. But it makes you wonder, back to what Desmond was talking about, do they know this area? Is this a neighborhood that they're from? Are they looking for a place to, park that car and quickly get out in a back alleyway where they actually know and are familiar with? It's unclear right now.
It is, and they seem to be going, Desmond, as you mentioned, sort of in circles. They are remaining in the Westlake area. Isn't this the longest they've been in one particular place, Desmond?
I would say so. Yeah. I would say so. That, like, we were briefly in downtown over by USC, then we came northbound on Vermont and through Mid-City, Koreatown, but now just kind of in the Westlake district. And we just got to look inside. There's no one sitting in the passenger seat, and LAPD is now indicating that they think that there's only the one person, the driver, left in the vehicle. So maybe there was only 3 total that were in the vehicle earlier. There is some talk of spike strips now, which is a little bit surprising. Definitely potentially risky for an officer if you're talking about someone who you believe is armed, because it's, one of the closest ways to put an officer in harm's way if you have a spike strip, throwing into the front of the vehicle where they could potentially be in the line of fire. So, but because of the kind of subdued driving of the suspect and kind of the way that they've been meandering around this same area, it sounds like they're making a calculated decision that, they may deploy that. We'll see if that ends up happening. But, not only are there obviously the 5 units behind the suspect, but there's a bunch on the periphery that are kind of almost like tailing the suspect, or rather paralleling the suspect, maybe a few blocks to the south, a few blocks to the north. The dispatcher is, doing a really good job of coordinating all of these units. So they definitely have a plenty of resources on this vehicle, and this person not really making any kind of very serious attempt to get away. It's kind of looking like one of those, almost just like a run out the clock type situation, just to see how long they can continue this. If, like I said, on the phone with people, or maybe there's somewhere specific that they're wanting to surrender. We've seen that many times with suspects surrendering in front of their home or in front of their mother's house or a loved one or something. So, but just kind of dancing around the Westlake area here, pretty close to the speed limit, going through red lights and stuff, but we're not seeing the insane 80 miles an hour wrong side of the road driving or any of that. So, maybe LAPD will be able to bring this to an end fairly quickly if they do engage those spike strips. We'll see shortly.
Yeah, and engaging those spike strips, as Desmond was talking about, not an easy thing to do. They definitely have to see a pattern first of where this person is going and almost predict, Pat, where they're going to go next. That officer is going to have to set up, and also kind of hide so that they're not visible to the person, because what oftentimes happens is when they see that officer, they know there is a spike strip, exactly, and they'll go right around it. So they want to get out of the way as soon as they throw those spike strips out onto the street. But and
they that's need difficult too, because they're so heavy.
Sure.
They don't look it, but those spike strips are quite heavy.
That's right.
Quite wide. A good possibility, of course, because of the streets, as Des mentioned, they're more narrow. It's more residential, but thank goodness we don't see as many people out.
Yeah.
Really not as many cars. when you think about it.
At this
So
hour, yeah.
that is the good thing, and the rate of
Yep.
the speed that they're going right now.
Sure.
Was, yeah, apartments. So you never know if this driver, this suspect, is looking for some place to bail. Well, he's picking up a little bit more speed here, Des, more than we've seen. Just a little.
Yeah, just, well, for a second anyway, but you know, the bigger problem for us is now we are getting pretty close to downtown. You can see the 110 freeway right here. So now we are pretty much officially in downtown as we cross the 110 onto 7th Street. And now, you know, we'll see really what LAPD wants to do, because this is going to be disadvantaged helicopter so they're going to want to keep those ground units engaged here. And you can see, you know, all the big, beautiful buildings in LA will be getting in our shot, as well as LAPD's. We're continuing here on to 7th Street. You know, very common tactic we know with these suspects as far as trying to use these tall buildings to their advantage, and you can see why. It's something really over the last year or so I feel like we've seen a lot more of. But still, just, I mean, you know, our speedometer just indicating 15, 20 miles an hour on this one, as it looks like they just made a southbound turn now onto Hope Street. So getting away from some of the tall buildings, and it was Normandy and 22nd where they got 2 of those other suspects out. But, you know, we're also in downtown. It is a Friday night. Obviously, there's a lot of people down there. There's a lot of nightlife down here, a lot of late night eating and bars that are open, and a ton of pedestrians as well. So that's going to be another complicating factor for the ground unit. So complicated from the air with the tall buildings and all the pedestrians on the ground for LAPD trying to pursue on the ground, and we'll see how they handle that.
Yeah, and you know, oftentimes we see them, you know, slipping into one of those parking structures too in downtown LA. That's another concern, obviously. You know, but with those units, Pat, you know, they're on the ground so closely, you know, they're able to follow them. But boy, this person, again, not going very fast, doesn't look exactly desperate to get away from police tonight, but they keep going. They're not stopping. You know, if this is a want for possibly armed robbery suspects, we believe there are 3 people inside this car at one point, 2 people getting out in South LA and already arrested. We believe 1 person is still inside this car, so they are still running from police. And obviously, the LAPD not giving this up.
They're not. And what's interesting, Susie and Des, is you wonder, you know, they were in the Westlake area for the longest time once they left Alhambra. Now they're in downtown, and you wonder if they're on the phone with somebody, because it seems like this was a move they made on purpose. And they're, you know, as Desmond mentioned, it's sort of, we've seen more and more of this in the last month or so. It's almost as if they know to go in the downtown area because, well, wow, that was interesting. That person didn't speed up at all.
No.
And the pedestrian there.
Oh, boy.
But that was too close for comfort, if you ask me. But at the same time, it's almost as if they know we can go downtown and, possibly maybe try to ditch the car in a building, a parking garage, and get out and act like nothing has happened. Of course, that's all conjecture at this point. But now I do notice he's picked up speed a little bit again, Des. We're running into some traffic also.
This is, I mean, yeah, the fastest we've seen, and that's only 35 miles an hour. And you saw, you know, not even, it was like this is such a slow pursuit that it seemed that pedestrian wasn't even aware necessarily of how serious the situation was. And, you know, at least we're not seeing this person just, you know, plowing through the intersection and endangering that person's life. They actually stopped for that pedestrian, which is, frankly, you know, kind of rare that we've seen lately with these pursuits, because we've seen some of them just be so insane as they are right underneath us. Just give us a second here as we reposition. But now onto Washington Boulevard. And, you know, this is where we first actually heard LAPD calling out streets, was along Washington and Figueroa, so just a little bit to the west of here. So, you know, are we just kind of touring LA, dropping off our friends, and then we're just, you know, having this continue as long as we can until we run out of gas or something? I mean, some of these pursuits, there's just no rhyme or reason. It's like they just want to stay out of handcuffs as long as possible, and if that just means driving aimlessly, then, you know, that's what it means. It's just kind of what I'm thinking so far at this point, unless, you know, the suspect has some brilliant master plan that we're not able to deduce right now. But, you know, they're overhead. They were out of downtown. The helicopter not having any other issues. They're still 5 units behind this guy. LAPD still talking about spike strips. They haven't been able to coordinate that, obviously, yet, but it is in the working, and we'll see if, you know, LAPD is able to bring this to an end and not allow this to continue for you know, 2 or 3 hours, because that definitely happens sometimes. Sometimes they just let these things go, as long as they need to go. If the person is not driving, insanely recklessly, and other times, if they can use spike strips to do it, they will. It just kind of depends on the mood and the tack they want to take. But there is talk of spike strips as we're now back onto Adams Boulevard.
It's interesting, too. We talk about them not doing a pit maneuver, which is, when you look at this, at how slow the speeds have been, which be certainly the, opportune time to do something like this. But the fact that they don't know for sure if this person is armed or not would sort of, I guess, change their thinking on that. But you wonder, this person, more than likely at this point, it looks like they just want to ride this out, knowing they're still behind them. The night sun is still following them. So it's apparent right now that the police don't want to give this up right now. What would you say?
Exactly. And, doing a pit maneuver, we're talking about different agencies doing pit maneuvers in different situations. And, like the CHP, for example, they might go for something like this. Orange County, they might. Exactly. We've seen that this week as well, where they get a little bit more aggressive with their pit maneuvers. Even though, a person is armed, they might go for it. But we know that the LAPD, they tend to side on the more conservative side, and they tend to, wait for the suspect to stop so that they can approach the car safely later at the point when they do actually stop. So we'll see how they bring this to an end. But right now, as Desmond was saying, this person could run out of gas. That could be one of the ways they stop, or it could come to an end with a spike strip that the LAPD is actually planning on doing right now.
Or they could just stop, as we have seen before, and just throw the keys out of the car and then get out with their hands up, which is what we hope to see, quite frankly.
Perhaps the good news tonight, and a little bit of good news, is the fact that this person isn't driving so fast. We've been really highlighting that, exactly.
Other drivers, which, Desmond can obviously attest to that. We have seen some really wild chases, right?
Absolutely.
Just very destructive.
Yes.
So thank goodness so far we haven't seen anything like this tonight.
So Desmond, where are we now?
We are southbound on Central Avenue, well south of the 10 Santa Monica Freeway, so making our way towards South LA. And yeah, I mean, if there wasn't a spotlight on this suspect's vehicle right now, you might not even know there's a pursuit happening, because that's just kind of how subdued this has been at this point. So again, it was 22nd in Normandy where the other two were dropped off. We're quite a ways away from there. That's well to the west of here and west of the 110. We're well east of the 110, east of USC. Of course, now, we're going southbound Central, and the farther we get south of here, the more we're going to have issues with LAX's airspace. So, for our purposes, we would certainly like to see the spike strips sooner rather than later, as they make a turn now onto 35th Street. So we're right kind of on that line with LAX's airspace here, and us having to cede that space to LAPD's helicopter that is still overhead on this one, up to 40 miles an hour. That's, again, about the fastest that we've seen on this one. So are we still just kind of circling around and running the clock out? That's kind of how it seems. Just listening to a little bit of chatter behind the scenes of the coordination of the spike strips. I won't give any of those crucial details away, other than to just say that it sounds like LAPD is definitely willing to use them if the opportunity arises. But, like we say, Susie and Pat, it does take a lot of coordination. You've got to have someone blocks ahead. You've got to have the spike strips out and ready to retract. And then you have to time it so perfectly as well. So you have to be right place, right time, and then time it perfectly for that to be able to work. And then even if they do that, how's the suspect going to react? That might really agitate them. That could totally change the nature of this pursuit, where then they could slam on the gas pedal and start to really freak out. And even if they do hit the tires, as we know that the spike strips are designed to slowly deflate the tires, so it's not like it would bring this necessarily to an instant end. I mean, sometimes once they feel the rims actually on the asphalt and that they can hear that grinding, that usually it can be enough for some suspects anyway to give up, but not all of them.
Yeah, some, right?
We have definitely seen some suspects really willing to go the distance and push these vehicles until they can't go anymore, or even catch on fire as the brake caliper is scraping on the asphalt. So you know, even though they're talking about spike strips, that's not necessarily going to bring this to a quick conclusion anyway.
You know, let's tell our viewers again why they're, besides the fact, of course, that they believe this person is armed, but they believe that there were at least 3 people involved in this car in the very beginning in Alhambra. And Desmond, you said they were wanted for a series of robberies or possible multiple robberies. That's a lot. And then considering they got all the way from Alhambra to the downtown area, and then to Westlake, back downtown, now in Central City. But this all started because of armed robberies that occurred in Alhambra. Well, we assume it's Alhambra.
That's right. And, you know, well, what's interesting is we had heard that Alhambra gave up the pursuit due to speed. And isn't it kind of interesting that the suspect's been driving a lot more slowly and almost, you know, obeying a lot of the, I mean, still going through red lights, but at least stopping at these intersections like right there and not just, you know, plowing through them. But kind of interesting that they've been driving a lot more slowly after they dropped off the 2 passengers. Almost, you know, makes me wonder if this person is just a getaway driver or something like that. They just don't really seem to be that concerned. And we have certainly seen, you know, robbery suspects in the past just pedal to the metal, doing every risky maneuver possible to evade the authorities. And this person is not doing that at all. And, you know, a lot of times when we have those serious wants, the violent wants, is when we see the craziest driving. But that is not the case right now. But yeah, multiple armed robberies is what we heard LAPD saying on the radio. And so, you know, if they know who these people are, or this person is anyway, I mean, they already got 2 of them in custody, but, you know, they did make a point of saying multiple times that, you know, known to be armed and multiple alleged robberies. So, and yet, you know, the way this person is driving, you know, well, we're up to almost 60 miles an hour now, again, the fastest that we've seen. Yeah, and we are right by USC again, second time now that we've passed by USC as well. Well, I guess we'll just have to see what their next maneuver is, but over by USC could have a lot of people out here walking around again by the university, you know, fraternity parties, whatnot going on a Friday night. People might still be out on spring break as well. So we'll see what the suspect's next move is, northbound on Hoover. So now headed back towards downtown LA.
And it just makes you wonder what the LAPD is planning right now. You know, they're always working on some kind of plan to bring this to an end, whether that be spike strips or a pit maneuver. We believe that they're not attempting a pit maneuver on this car because of the fact that we do believe that they are armed, this person inside this car. We do believe that. It's not clear, but we do know that at some point, some of the occupants in this car, at least one of them, were armed, because the want is the pursuit of armed robbery suspects. So it could be multiple people with a weapon, but it's unclear right now. Desmond said that at one point there was something being thrown out the window. What that is or was unclear tonight. That could have been a weapon, but oftentimes we see, you know, suspects throwing things out the window that they do not want law enforcement to find as evidence later on when the car is stopped. Again, 3 people were inside this car. We do believe at one point they were dropped off at 22nd and Normandy, where the LAPD caught up with them and arrested those people. One person we do believe still inside this car, and their want, again, an armed robbery suspect. Going through from Alhambra to Westlake area, Koreatown, downtown LA, and Exposition Park area now, and it looks like they're going at the same speed pretty much. We picked up speeds of up to about, you know, close to 60 miles one point on surface streets, Pat.
Which is the highest that we had seen.
And now going
wrong side right here.
Oh, that's the first time we've seen them going the wrong side of the road, though.
Well,
yeah.
Now it's getting a little bit more interesting now, Desmond, even making this turn here. But you still wonder, do they know where they're going? Are they picking these areas, you know, specifically or just randomly? But regardless of that, LAPD has been right behind this vehicle. It's very dark now where they are, but they're staying on top of this, or behind them, I should say. And they do have that night sun. And are they putting on? I thought they were going to go to a stop there because they put the brakes on. That's just to turn again. But again, the speeds have slowed down Oh, there's a, oh, they just passed another vehicle. I don't, let's, okay, Desmond, what would you describe that you're seeing right now? They seem to be making these turns where you almost think they know where they're going. Or they're doing it on purpose, and then now he's making a straightaway, picking up more speed.
Definitely, strange maneuvers here. The first time we saw that wrong way driving, and now we're back southbound on Vermont. So, and I heard that the helicopter overhead he was remarking on, that maybe this is where the suspect, they might know this area, and so here we go. Now speeds are also going up, and they're going right by LAPD. So they seem to be kind of in a hurry to get into this neighborhood. You saw cutting over to the wrong side of the road underneath the 10 freeway there on Vermont. So, why was that the area where they did that? And they have picked up speed a little bit and circling around. I believe this area is southbound on Buglong. This is going to go underneath the 10 again. So just right here on the outside. Do we have spike strips here? No, we have units that are standing by, but that just shows you, the coordination going on with LAPD and how, we haven't even been on these streets, but LAPD was just kind of hanging out on the perimeter. So you have at least the 5 units that are in pursuit, and then other units on the periphery of the pursuit, just kind of moving along with it and ready to, engage or get out and run after the suspects if they get out of the vehicle and run as well. There hasn't, been the opportunity for the spike strips quite yet. It kind of seemed like maybe that little industrial area that may have been a decent point for that, but haven't quite been able to get that going. And now we're back out onto Adams again. This is the 3rd or 4th time we've been out on Adams, so headed to the West Adams area. And you're starting to see more and more people coming out as well, taking their little short videos for Instagram reels or for whatever other social media site. And the longer this goes on, this is kind of another thing that LAPD has to deal with, is that this just turns into kind of a sideshow, a little bit of a circus, and you might have people getting way too close to what's going on. And we've definitely seen that in the past, where people literally come and interact with some of these suspects. And driving is getting a little bit more erratic now as we're southbound on Normandy. This is very close to where the other 2 suspects were apprehended when they got out of the vehicle. 22nd and Normandy is where that happened. So we're just a little bit south of there. Unfortunately, we are headed back towards the LAX airspace here, and that could be a factor for us. But we are sticking with it here as we're now up to just about 50 miles an hour here, heading into the heart of South LA.
Well, when you talk about periphery, they have to move now because they've surpassed where we saw that little cluster of law enforcement vehicles that were not involved in this pursuit, but they were on the periphery. But now they have moved back, or they're going back through South Los Angeles, so that's more coordination with LAPD as to where they disperse their vehicles next, right, where they have people, officers standing by, possibly waiting for this driver to pass them. That's what makes it so difficult in terms of laying out spike strips. Even when they're going so slowly, you think you can do it because of the possibility of the suspect being armed. That's prohibiting them from probably taking that action, unless they really got good information that, hey, no, there's no there's no gun or there's no weapon in the vehicle.
It makes you wonder, though, what spooked them to go a little faster and pick up speed like this, Pat? Ever since they saw what you were calling the cluster of law enforcement, maybe they thought, the only officers who were behind them were the ones, the only officers who were chasing after them were the ones up in the air and on the ground, but when they, and behind them, but when they see others, scattered throughout, and they think, ooh, maybe they're working on some kind of plan to bring this to an end. Maybe that's what spiked them or spooked them and made them go the other way.
Well, I don't know. I would, obviously we're not criminals, but when you think about, you started out with 2 other people in the car, they're out, they bailed out, they bailed on you, actually, because they didn't want to continue this pursuit with you. So now they're leaving you by yourself, and you're driving, and you're driving, and you're driving, and doesn't seem to be, going in a particular space, or the same area, but not necessarily showing us that yeah, well, I'm going to pull in here and give myself up or stop this. And again, though, interestingly, we have not really seen signs of desperation. Would you say that? You know what I mean?
I mean, Desmond was talking about how this person was originally, or the original want was for speed. and in Alhambra. So, we weren't even talking about the pursuit of armed robbery suspects, but then we're talking about, speed, and how Desmond was saying that, relative to now, they're driving, well, they are picking up speed now, but earlier they were driving so slow. It makes you wonder, after they dropped off those occupants inside the car, if, that was the reason why they were speeding, because inside that car, there was so much tension, and God knows what they were, screaming at each other when they were being pursued originally, after being pursued perhaps for armed robbery. So it just makes you wonder, yeah.
They wanted to get out of the vehicle.
Exactly.
They didn't have to, but obviously they left this driver to himself. And quite frankly, as we've seen in those situations, Desmond, that's who they want anyway, right? They want the driver more than anything.
Yeah. It's true.
And, at this point, don't really know if the driver was actually pulling a weapon in these particular robberies. But still, this is the one who has kept going and eluded police. They have the other two in custody. So,
southbound.
All right, Desmond, you're back on the air. I heard you just say going southbound.
Yeah, southbound on Western, definitely not good news for our live shot right now as we crawl deeper into LAX's airspace. But you were saying, yeah, the driver's definitely the one that they want. I mean, they're the ones that are, failing to yield. They're the ones that have been, doing everything dangerous out here right now. A lot of times.
We have breaking news. Armed robbery suspects on the run. We are live over an LAPD chase at 11. All right, we're watching this police pursuit of an armed robbery suspect in the 11 o'clock hour of KCAL News, and we are broadcasting, or simulcasting actually, on CBS Los Angeles and KCAL 9.
Oh, this all started in Alhambra with reports of a speeding car, and that was the original one, but then it turns out now it is for alleged armed robbery suspects. We believe originally there were 3 people inside this car when they were being pursued by the Alhambra Police Department. 2 of the occupants were dropped off at 22nd and Normandy in South LA, and that's where the LAPD caught up with those 2 individuals, and now we're pursuing this 3rd person. We believe there is only 1 person inside this car. And Pat, at one point, we believe that something was thrown out of the car. So whether that be a weapon or something else that they didn't want police to see or find when they're actually stopped, when this finally comes to an end, whatever that was, they threw out the windows. But whenever that happens, police will catch up to it, and they will definitely, get that for evidence later.
Okay, I had mentioned that we are simulcasting. We are not. We are going to continue our coverage on CBS Los Angeles on Channel 2, and we will go to regular programming back on KCAL, but of course, turn to Channel 2 to watch the continuing coverage of this pursuit and the beginning of our news coverage. All right, we are covering a pursuit that has traversed from Alhambra all the way to Westlake, Koreatown to downtown Los Angeles. We had 3 suspects that were wanted for possible armed robbery. This started out as a case of speeding, but turned into a want for possible armed robbery. 2 suspects got out at 22nd and Normandy, and now we have seen this driver over the last almost 45 minutes, I would say, that we've been on the air talking about this. And our Desmond Shaw is live in SkyCal with more. And Des, at this time, we still have not seen any type of pit maneuver or spike strips being put down. And we are believing that it's probably because the fact that they believe that this person could have a weapon in this vehicle. But they have not given up on this pursuit. As soon as Alhambra PD turned over to LAPD, they have stayed on this chase from the ground and in the air.
They have been, decently aggressive with this. Certainly, at least sticking with this. I mean, this is, an alleged violent act that's in their jurisdiction. So it's not just a stolen vehicle or something like that, where they may, be more likely to let them get away as we make a southbound turn now down to Western Avenue. So we're really getting deep into South LA now and deep into LAX's airspace as well. 2 of the 3 in the vehicle have already been taken into custody. It's just the driver that's believed to still be in the vehicle right now. We've been kind of touring all over the LA basin, though. You heard about it south of downtown LA, then we came by USC and went up through Koreatown and then into the Westlake District through the heart of downtown LA, and then now we're deep into South LA again. We're southbound on Western, and there had been talk of the spike strips for some time, but then that just kind of trailed off. We haven't really heard since they came down into South LA. We haven't heard any more talk about them potentially using spike strips on this one, and the suspect has been taking a few more chances here where they can do. There you can see as they make a westbound turn, but from the far left lane onto 71st Street here, and obviously our shot getting pretty difficult here as we are very close to LAX's final approach, and LAPD needs to have that airspace as much to themselves as possible for the spotlight they are providing right now for the ground units and calling out the streets for the ground units and trying to coordinate everyone on the periphery of this pursuit as well. So Gramercy Place now is we're westbound. The highest speeds we've seen are 50 miles an hour. And this has been pretty much exclusively on surface streets since we first heard about it in downtown LA. It may have come here on the freeway from Alhambra, and we had heard about some high speeds at the beginning of this pursuit, and that's why Alhambra had given it up, as we're on the wrong side of the road again now here at Van Ness and Florence. So making a northbound turn now onto Van Ness, coming kind of back towards us now, but at least 5 units in tow, and the suspect just kind of running out the clock. It's been aimless driving around certain neighborhoods, and just when you think maybe they're getting ready to get out of the vehicle and run, they just continue to evade the officers here, but no real serious attempt to get away. It's almost just like a Friday night joyride, trying to stay out of handcuffs as long as possible for the suspect in South LA and Hyde Park, and with only one headlight as well, making it a little bit more dangerous for folks out here seeing this person come through, as they have been coming through some of the red lights. But now we're trekking northbound through Hyde Park, the last of 3 robbery suspects behind the wheel of this Hyundai Sonata, Pat.
I didn't mean to sound like I was laughing, but when you said Friday night joyride, that's basically what this seems to have turned into. Now, okay, obviously our speedometer is a little off because we had speeds of up to 80 miles an hour. That's not the case. They're still really maybe picking up a little more speed, but not necessarily driving so much over the speed limit at this time, but still maybe a little faster than we saw a moment ago. They slowed down tremendously when they were making that turn. And now, again, very dark, South Gramercy Place. And you just wonder, Desmond, we have seen officers go all night long until a vehicle stops. And, for selfish reasons, we hope that won't be the case tonight, but we have seen that happen. Now, what did you, you know what I mean? You remember, we've seen some go all night where they figure they were just going to let it out. And then it could be hours before the vehicle runs out of gas or the person stops, but they seem content to take their time. That's not always the case, though, is it, Des? But probably because this person isn't driving recklessly.
Yeah, a little bit of wrong way driving right here, but yeah, it just kind of depends on the tack that LAPD wants to take. And you're right, Pat. It always seems to be a Friday night when we have these pursuits, these marathon ones that have gone on as late as 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I just noticed here as they're coming back towards us, you can see a little bit of damage on the bumper there. Now, I'm not sure where that happened. That's the first I've seen of that damage. And there was an officer that was down there that was kind of in the middle of the street, and there may have been a spike attempt there. But I can't confirm that, and I did just hear the commander or the sergeant basically say, hey, if we got spike strips, let's use them. This guy's just kind of tootling around the same neighborhood. Of course, right after he said that, now we're coming back out of South LA. I mean, we're still kind of far in South LA, but headed back towards the 10 freeway in West Adams. So we'll just have to see if they're able to get those spike strips in place. But there you can see their helicopter coming through the shot right now, and see if we can get a little bit better look at that damage. But I didn't hear them say anything about good spike or no spike or anything like that. It was just the way or bad spike. But the way that officer was out there, it almost looked like it was an attempt, and there is suddenly some damage that we're seeing there to the front passenger side right there by the tire. taking a couple of these speed humps a little bit quickly here. 51st and St. Andrews, and speed's picking back up again, and we've seen the suspect doing this. If they're maybe just trying to get a little bit of speed to get out and just try to get a couple of critical seconds ahead of LAPD to get out and run. But yeah, I mean, what is the wider strategy here other than just running out the clock on this one? And as we're northbound Gramercy again, but just kind of cutting all over the place here. Really seems to be pretty random driving. And you know, maybe the suspect will end up driving into, I mean, they've covered so many streets. It's kind of surprising that they haven't driven into a dead end already. So maybe, you know, LAPD will get lucky with something like that here in this area.
You know what, Desmond, you said something. Maybe they could pick up enough speed that they think that they could just hop out and start running and, you know, get ahead of police. But as you have been saying, they're keeping up with this car. Oh, that was a wild turn.
They are. Yeah, he was actually up on the curb right there as well. It was definitely a little bit reckless. So, and, you know, and now here we are circling again. There's been multiple times with suspects this guy circling in the same neighborhood, and you know, I'm hearing the helicopter make it sound like, you know, let's get these spike strips going. So they want to get this over with as well. Those units are right back there, but they've got to get someone out there who has the spike strips in their cruiser and get them positioned properly. But now this is another one of those neighborhoods we've just kind of been hanging around here and see if that is still in the offing. But you know, a little nerve-wracking here on these narrow streets. They're pretty dark as well. The suspect only has one headlight, as well as they're making another southbound turn now onto Arlington. And you know, like I said as well, Pat, the longer this goes on, the more people that are, you know, watching this on the news and they want to come out and get their picture on TV or get their little video for social media. So it's definitely in LAPD's best interest to just try to get this over with as soon as possible.
I agree with you there. And you know, when I said that was a wild turn there, it almost like they went up on the curb and the car rocked a bit. I mean, depending on how fast this vehicle was going, of course, we could see something like that happen if they took that turn too fast. And as you mentioned, we don't really know how this car got damaged in the first place with that bumper hanging off like that. So he obviously had hit something, or the officer made some kind of contact with maybe a spike strip, possibly. But as you had pointed out, that's the first time that we had noticed really this vehicle having any kind of damage to it. But then again, going from where they've traveled from Alhambra all the way down to South Los Angeles, not really knowing what, you know, transpired before that, or even during these so-called possible multiple robberies. Don't know, you know, could that vehicle have had experienced some kind of damage then? You've been over this for a while, Des. Would you say that that's the first time you noticed the damage on this car, just in the time that you've been overhead with this pursuit?
Yeah, I first noticed it when just as they came around where that officer was out there walking around. So, and it was kind of underneath a tree. So it's possible this person bumped into a parked vehicle, or if there was some kind of, you know, divider out there that they went up on. And we already saw them, you know, go up on the curb as well. And you can definitely flatten a tire there if you go up on a curb. Pretty tough. As we're getting another look at that right there. And here we go. I think this might be a dead end. Well, they're turning back around onto the sidewalk.
Oh, boy.
Onto the sidewalk. Let's see if LAPD is going to head him out. Well, he might have just hit a tree right there. He might have just hit a tree. We'll see if we can position around this tree a little bit here to the southeast. My pilot, Chris, doing a great job dealing with LAX's airspace right now. And I think they might have gotten themselves stuck against a tree. In fact, he's not even going to be able to come out the driver's side, most likely. And, okay, we can hold this position right here. Probably the best view that we're going to get. So off of Gramercy and 62nd. Now we got to see if this is going to turn into some kind of a standoff or something, though. And, again, this possibly armed suspect. But the pursuit part at least appears to be at an end unless they try to drive on the sidewalk again. I think that suspect really panicked, Pat. They clearly had no idea where they were going into this industrial area. So good that we're away from homes at least. It shouldn't be getting anyone else in harm's way. And but, you know, LAPD's not going to move their cruiser in. because, and I think I'm hearing them talking about potential crossfire situations right now. So let's just hope that the suspect comes to their senses. They've run long enough. Let me see if I can double in again.
That's
I
close.
can't tell if
Yeah, I don't see how they
is.
can open the car door. That's the driver's side up against that tree.
I can't.
Right?
Yeah, and I can't tell if they has a hand or something out the window there. I'm really kind of doubled or like actually tripled in right now. But you kind of see something almost looks like it's coming out of the driver's side window. Maybe a hand. You know, hopefully, let me see if I can magnify this. It might be a little bit too blurry, but yeah, that's not really helping, unfortunately, to determine what that is that I'm looking at. Let me just try one other thing here, but
you know what, Des?
They're talking about they want to get some shields into place, and yeah,
because it looks stuck. I mean, where could they? Well, you know, we've seen crazy before, but I mean, if they backed up, for goodness sakes, you're talking about assault with a deadly weapon. If they were to hit that vehicle right there, where the law enforcement, where the officers are out of the car. So, and if he goes forward, isn't there a building? So
I think so. I can't quite. It almost looks like there might be something kind of like the part of that building right there might kind of be partially blocking his way forward, like you can't squeeze the vehicle through there. And boy, Pat, you're right. I mean, that pursuit the other night.
Oh, he's out,
that
Des.
Suspect at the end of that pit maneuver.
Des, he's out.
Okay, there you go. We got hands out the window. There we go. Great news. So the joyride hopefully looks like it is over, and so he's having to crawl out of the passenger window, and it's just a little bit nerve-wracking for LAPD. I'm not even sure if he can open that door. He's trying to kind of just finagle his way out the window there and kind of onto the roof. They've got their weapons drawn, and they've got some ballistic shields back there as well. And they're going to want this suspect completely out of the car. Okay, never mind. It looks like he was able to get out. Okay, out on his feet, up possibly. I'll see if we can move south just a little bit. We've got these trees in the way, but really kind of a difficult angle here. But it looks like he's up against the wall and complying with commands. Took long enough. And hopefully we will see some handcuffs on the suspect shortly. And then we're also going to have to verify that there's nobody else in the vehicle. So they're probably actually, yeah, here we go. They're going to have him walk back so that they can put him in handcuffs and get him away from that vehicle so that they can also go up and clear that car at the same time and make sure that they're not going to get surprised by anything that might potentially be left in the vehicle.
Okay, Desmond, now what is he doing here? He's not necessarily following exactly what they want him to do. Right? I mean, he moved. Now he is. Now they're going to get him.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, usually we'd like to see him get down, you know, on their stomach, completely subdued. But up against the wall there with his hands up, and you know that was, I guess, good enough for LAPD. They wanted to get this wrapped up, and they came and they're clearing the vehicle as well. So they're kind of having trouble. They want to get in the trunk, make sure there's, you know, not somebody hiding in there. Or anything nefarious going on. So they're trying to get in the trunk, but a little bit complicated because they can't get in the driver's side. So they're not going to give the official code 4, I don't think, until they can get that trunk open. But it looks like they can see inside, and there's no one else in the vehicle. Otherwise, they probably would have run back to cover and then kind of gone back to more of a defensive posture. But so they're going to try to get this trunk open, and it seems like we're almost out of code 4 here, but not quite until they can get this trunk open.
You know, we can call this suspect apprehended by tree. I mean, that's basically what stopped this thing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he just drove right up to this, on the sidewalk, and ran into this tree where he couldn't go any further and decided, I guess, you know, I have no other choice now to just try to get out the vehicle as calmly as best I can. For a moment there, I thought, though, Des, he kept turning around and maybe trying to walk forward, like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to turn back around and put your hands up against the wall.
Those pesky trees getting in the way of the suspects, I tell you. Just in time for Earth Day, Mother Nature here coming to the rescue with this pursuit and getting this suspect into custody. They did just officially give the code 4. They got the trunk open, and so 3 of 3 now in custody. The first 2 very early in the pursuit. The last of the suspects here they were able to get. So armed robbery suspects after just kind of a slow speed pursuit all around the LA basin. Now over 3 suspects in custody, Pat.